All right, welcome to Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet. We have Captain Ron on location. Not going to tell you where, but he looking pretty good.
An undisclosed location.
That's right.
Tony, today we have one of those really exciting shows that's really beneficial. I'm genuinely really excited about that. Today's guest is a writer, data analyst, and web developer who started this Twitter phenomenon, and now I've seen him on CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, Fox, everything, including UBN. And what he's done is he's exposed for us lay people what Facebook and Google collect on each one of us. And it's absolutely remarkable. And I don't think people realize the extent of the data that they collect from each of us just in our daily lives. It's remarkable. Let's hear it from him instead of me. Please welcome to the show, Dylan Curran.
That's right.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Welcome, Dylan.
It's good to be here.
This is really remarkable. And I think today's kids certainly don't even think twice about this. They put their whole life on Facebook, and I don't even think they have any idea of the damage that's potential in that. Right, Dylan?
Yeah, so that's probably one of my biggest complaints with this entire thing is that kids are having their information harvested and collected, but they actually can't consent. And that's one of the biggest points is that whatever about us adults, like we're grown up enough to know what we're doing. But when kids start using iPads from the age of 8 and they have every search, location, and website browse and image and file downloaded, collected from the age of 8, pretty much for the rest of their lives, it's a bit of a weird sort of territory because kids can't consent to anything, let alone something like that.
It's Truman Show.
Yeah, it's true.
You know
I'm
that
Irish
film?
to know what that is. No. Sorry,
He's too young.
It's about this guy's whole life being on camera. The whole thing was fictitious except for him. He didn't realize that everybody else was an actor. So it's just the same kind of a thing that now they're data mining you for ads, for advertisement, for political. It's incredible how much data they collect.
Yeah, and I suppose the biggest issue really is the depth to which they go. Excuse me. And the expiry date on the information is pretty much eternity. So they can hold virtually all of the information they have about you forever. So, for instance, they have my search history from 10 years ago still there. So it's like there's no actual limit on how far they'll go back. And these are still relatively new companies. Like Google was started up in 1996 and Facebook was started up in 2006. So these companies, while they're only recent enough, I mean, they're already a complete staple of our lives. And they're holding information on every single aspect of it, and they can compose your identity from all this information. So we're into really scary territory. And I guess that's one of the things I'm proudest of the most is getting the ordinary person who's not interested in technology to actually like observe this.
What I think's funny is back in the day in the early 90s when cell phones first came out, it was actually really more for the elite. Us lower folks that make less money, we couldn't afford the cell phones, but the companies quickly made it very affordable, from the internet to cell phones, and then how fast they progressed to being the internet on the cell phones. Honestly, people like Captain Ron and myself are baffled how fast they went because we're old fogies and remember we didn't have all that. But nowadays, people have become so addicted. I mean, I can drive down the interstate or the freeway here in Los Angeles, and every other car has their phones up on the internet, talking on their phones, and it's becoming an addiction. And I think that was meant for that. I think they really meant to have this as an addiction so they can retrieve information on a daily basis and actually on minute-to-minute basis.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure there was a major psychologist at Facebook. He either used to work at Facebook or works at Facebook, and he was saying that they actually build these applications in such a way that you get a dopamine hit. So similarly, like if you eat a slice of cake, you'll get a dopamine hit. When you flick on your phone and see a notification, you'll get a dopamine hit. So they build these websites in such a way that you are going to want to keep using them. So you get the fresh new thing, the hot new thing every time you scroll up or scroll down.
Right.
So these websites are built to be addictive. Now, it's still, as I'll say for most things, it's up to the person to get addicted to them or not, or to have the willpower or discipline not to get addicted to them. But it's the same thing as cocaine or anything like that, where if someone does start using it, they're probably not going to stop. Like, that's just how it's built. That's how it's made. That's how it works with your body. It's something that we can't really help. We have an addiction now to information, which is a great addiction to have. That being said, like, we're in one of the best times in history to be alive, and still, I still think people are probably unhappier now than they would have been 50 years ago, because it's not a way to live.
I agree. I totally agree.
You know, I heard that guy talk about that, the Facebook guy. One of the guys came out and said they studied slot machines. It's the same reward thing as playing a slot machine. Just by checking your Facebook. They want you to constantly check your Facebook.
Yeah.
And now they collect all that data. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, so the way Facebook works is very similar to a slot machine. So every time you refresh, a new thing comes up. So what it used to operate was as a chronological timeline. So you would basically see people's posts come up in order of date. So the newest post would come up first. Now it's random. Now it's something that every time you refresh the page, there'll be a new video, a new post, a new image, a new meme, pretty much anything you can imagine, there'll be a new one coming up. And then they're also collecting all this information so that they know exactly what that random thing that comes up is going to be that you like. It's going to be tailored specifically to you. So it's going to seem random, but it's not really.
You know, this really started way before even cell phones. If you think about it, you know, in the era where just people used to go to movies and how they would embed messages and product into movies that you didn't even know that were there, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't know why I want to go purchase a product that you saw in a movie. So they've been doing this for a long time, even before cell phones.
Yeah, so it's subliminal advertising, and it's something that, to be honest, like, the modern age is an advertiser's dream, because now you can sell your product to exactly the demographic you want to sell to. So if you're interested in selling your product to a 25-year-old BA with interest in fitness and accountancy and finance and loves Twitter, whatever, you can narrow it down to the very fine detail, to the stage where you know they're pregnant, or you know they have X amount of children, you know they read X amount of books, and they read a certain book, and that they watch certain videos, and they're a Democrat or they're a Republican, if they're a libertarian, if they're fat, if they're skinny, if they're rich, if they're poor. Like, they can narrow it down all the way down to the minutiae of a person, and then figure out what they want to sell them and make them buy it.
What do you think about Cambridge Analytics and how they use this stuff?
So the sad thing is that I haven't really had a chance to look too deeply into Cambridge Analytica, because this exploded so quickly. I haven't had time to even research other topics. Sure. But the basic summary is that Facebook were really, really, really irresponsible with the information. So they let Cambridge Analytica access these vast volumes of information, and then they trusted Cambridge Analytica not to abuse it, and then they did. And now it's even come out that it wasn't only 50 million Facebook users profiles. It's actually 89 million. And I don't know what the voting population of the United States is. I think it must be something, 250 million? Thereabouts. So you're looking at around 40% of the voting population, which this company had a sway over, which that doesn't destroy the voting process. It shines a new light on how things work nowadays. And there's not really any thoughts to have other than to criticize it. And Facebook should be crucified for ever letting that happen. Same with Google. These companies have mass influence over people, and they should not be even it should not even be considered slightly okay for something like this to happen.
I'm surprised there's not more of a backlash about this. Like you said, this should be condemned. Congress should be going crazy. They should be stopping these companies. I mean, you're really helping to expose this, but it's really not as lead story as we would think it should be, right?
Well, that's Ben. See, like, I write for The Guardian, and these Cambridge Analytica stories have been at the top of the page every single day. But one of the issues is that there's not a whole lot we can do about it without severely compromising digital enterprise. So, like, if we want to start legislating online companies like Facebook and Google, what we actually end up doing is hurting the little guy. So, like, any sort of journalistic website, any sort of new startup, they're going to be the ones who are really hurt by this. Facebook and Google have massive lawyer teams and huge cash cows that they can use to get around these kind of things, but the small companies, not so much. And then they also have massive lobbying power. I mean, they're already completely embedded in people's lives. So they say they're going to stop using it, but they're really not. So it's a difficult fight to really get into.
Why don't you talk a little bit about how, like, any one of these. Pick one. Even how you've now got a news story about how our phones, and tell us, audience, how that's possible.
So when
this is scary.
Yeah, so if you have an application on your phone and it asks you for camera and microphone access, which a lot of them typically tend to do, what you won't know is that they can do a variety of different things. So what if, say, if you go on a Snapchat, they'll ask for your camera access, and you think that'll be used just to take pictures. But what that access can do is it allows that application to take pictures or videos at any time without telling you. It can upload them immediately.
Wow.
It can do facial recognition on those pictures or videos. It can stream the video. It can do numerous other things. It can build a 3D model of your face and upload it. It can do all these kind of things. But that's not to say that they do it, because I have no evidence that they do. The problem is that they can. So
it's a
and they can do
freaking spy movie.
It is.
Yeah,
Right.
look, it is. It's almost, it's kind of funny, like what they could do. Like, that's insanity. Like, it's really cool, like, to be honest, that they can live stream your face onto the internet and then build a 3D model of it. It's just a little bit scary, and they can do this, and that's a full-blown fact. Whether they do it is where the discrepancy is. I don't know if they do, but I know they can.
That's when
Even
people.
that's scary.
I was going to say that's when people used to wish they could be in a spy movie, and I'm like, be careful of what you wish for. 'Cause-
Yeah, you're already
yeah, you're already there.
Wasn't there? You alluded to a guy who did a documentary about someone who stole his phone.
Yeah. So there's this Dutch filmmaker, and he actually had a phone stolen from him. And he went to the police, and they were like, well, what are you going to do about it? So he decided to get another phone and then plant a virus on it, which essentially let him have full access to the phone at any time. So he went out, got the phone stolen, and then had basically a full-blown version of this guy's life. So when this guy went to the shop, he could take videos and pictures of him. He could read his texts. He could listen to his calls. He could stream videos of him. He actually got a video of him masturbating at one stage. It was insanity. Like, and they put this in the documentary. They blurred out his face, but they actually caught him doing it, and then even saw beside it the website.
Wait a minute, they chose to blur out his face. That's the part they blurred out.
Yeah, no, everything else is fine, but you can't recognize a dude from his penis. So maybe you can. I can't.
Tony might, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
That is
I have hobbies.
Good for that guy for doing that.
Yeah, it was incredible work, and it was funny because during the documentary, he actually he said he started sympathizing with the guy because he saw literally every aspect of this guy's life, and then he saw, this guy was struggling and he was poor, and he didn't have a girlfriend and all this kind of stuff. He said he started feeling really bad for him, and then he was using the guy's mobile data to upload and stream videos, so he started sending him credit.
Yeah.
But then when he sent him credit, the dude was like, "Hold on, what the fuck?" And he just threw the phone away. Then he got freaked out.
That is I linked that. I'm going to watch that. Tony, we got to put that up on our site. That's
Definitely,
awesome. And then also you guys can tap into, I saw you had a site on here where we can tap into other public cameras and watch things going on around the world.
Yeah, so that website's called Instacam. Right. So essentially, if you have a public CCTV camera, this camera has an IP address, and you can actually link those IP addresses online, and then people can use them to view what's going on. So this one website, what they've done is compile all of these public IP addressed cameras and then sort them by categories. So by location, by place, by time, or by country, etc. So you can find like a kitchen in Czechoslovakia. Korea. Yeah, Korea. Like you can find a kitchen in Russia. Yeah. And you can pretty much just view live like what's going on. So I tuned into a church in, I think it was South Italy. It was nice. But then there was just someone, brushing away, mopping the floor. And there was 25 people watching her. And like she had no idea. Like it was crazy. It was like she literally being watched by 25 people while she was mopping a church floor and had no clue.
That would be
this
scary.
is becoming 1984. You know that reference, right?
Yeah, I read
that. That is what we're talking about here. And we're talking about how they can use your camera on your computer. That you said even the head of the FBI, Comey, covers up that thing with a piece of tape.
Yeah, so James Comey covers up his his webcam tape, and then also so does Mark Zuckerberg. So they both do it. Now you could argue that they're so big they need to do it, while the ordinary person, no one's really gonna care. But that's not. It's more the principle of it that really bothers me. It's not that they are more important than us, and therefore they have it's adding more value. It's that, well, no one should be watched. Like, no one should be watched through these things whatsoever. It's not just the big guys. It's not just the big rich guys who have something to lose. Everybody has the same right to privacy and dignity as the rest of us. So like there's really no argument there for me. Like, no one should be watched in their home ever. Full stop.
Agreed. Agreed. And the fact that they're doing it shows you it can be done. That they know it can be done.
Exactly. So they know the industry better than anyone, especially James Comey and especially Mark Zuckerberg. So if they're doing it, then they know that you cannot trust these devices. And I'm not trying to say some sort of conspiracy. I'm just saying that if they really trusted this security industry, then they wouldn't do it. They would know that no one would ever possibly be looking through their webcam. So it's something that I think we should all take on board.
If this kid got his phone stolen and was able to do all that stuff on the other guy's phone, imagine what top CIA guys can do.
Oh my gosh. They don't need satellites anymore.
Pretty much. No, that's gone. We don't need them anymore. We got phones. But it's well, I suppose you've definitely read into the Edward Snowden PRISM program before, have you?
What is it called? Edward Snowden.
It's Edward Snowden basically talking about the PRISM program, which was in the NSA, which is essentially, it was the NSA programming backdoors into all the largest social platforms. So for instance, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Microsoft, etc. would put in backdoors so that the NSA could get access to all of that information at any time. So that's already there. So the NSA can access all of this stuff, and there's no like top CIA hackers. It's pretty much as easy as clicking a button. Like, there's not any difficulty behind it. And then if we go into, they did a program called Optic Nerves, which was where the NSA went on Yahoo and captured images every 5 minutes from all of the personal Yahoo video chats. So that was 1.1 million video chats, and they captured images for an hour every 5 minutes. And around 11% of the images was basically just nudity. And they did this in an hour. They got around 150,000 nudes like of people, like just ran. They just
in
went
an hour.
In an hour.
In an hour. Yeah, they got that many. It's incredible. And this is only the stuff that I've read into and know about. There's hundreds of thousands of documentation about this that I haven't had a chance to go through.
Couldn't hackers that know what they're doing get in there and do the same thing?
See, it's a little bit different because the NSA has agreements with these organizations for them to get backdoors. So it's much, much, much easier for the NSA to get it. It really is as simple as just clicking a button. For hackers to do it, they have to actually breach the set security. So the NSA doesn't have to do that. They get a shortcut around, while the rest of the people have to beat their heads against the wall. So it's a lot more difficult for hackers to gain access to that kind of stuff. But that being said, have you heard of MyFitnessPal?
MyFitnessPal?
Yeah.
No.
So it's an application on your phone that tracks your diet.
Oh,
your
yeah.
Yeah. That they had a data breach last weekend, I think it was, and 150 million people's information was leaked. So that was their workouts, their nutritional records, their weights, their emails, their passwords. Is insanity. Like, it's crazy.
Now that seems like harmless information. Like, who cares if people eat or when they went to the gym? But can't you say that there can be some nefarious things that's used for?
Yes. So the nefarious things that can be used for is, if the hackers gain that kind of information, they can sell it. So they can sell it to advertisers, because advertisers love that kind of stuff. Because if you know what someone's eating, then you know what they're going to buy.
Right.
If you know their workout regime, then you also know how much they're going to eat a week and whether they're likely to go to a gym. So while that kind of use isn't technically nefarious, it's still very capitalistic. Like, it's still using information for the pure monetary means. And the thing is, when you use something like MyFitnessPal, you're not consenting to have that done. So it's still going to be used against you. So it's kind of a quid pro quo kind of thing.
Dylan, could you talk a little bit about how Google you could find this information. You did. It's not like you broke into their system. You could just, anybody can go and look up this information based on you. I kind of did a little bit of mine, and they make it very friendly. Like, it's a good thing that we're tracking every piece of data on you.
So the thing is, Google does actually use this information to benefit your experience because they can tailor everything towards you, which is, that's a good and a bad thing. I mean, so for instance, I've disabled all my privacy collection settings, so they don't collect any information on me at all anymore. But the thing is, now when I use Google, and if I use YouTube, or if I use anything like that, it kind of sucks now. Like, my YouTube recommended videos suck. Like, now it's just random, whereas before they would tailor it towards me.
Oh, so, that's a good point.
So, like, these things do have a benefit. The thing is, they're using it to make money because they want you to keep using their stuff more. So while it does have a benefit for both sides, they get to tailor videos more towards you. You watch more advertising, you watch ads more tailored towards you, so therefore they'll make more money and the cycle continues. Then you'll also get a better experience. The problem with me is not that they're collecting this information to better your experience. The problem is the length of time they're keeping the information.
Right.
So if they're keeping the information for around 10 years, any information over 2 years old is worthless, absolutely worthless to them as an advertising company, because people's interests and hobbies and sometimes career tends to change, and even their location tends to change over about 2 to 3 years. So if your tastes and buying habits change incredibly so from the age of 18 to 21, 21 to 24, 24 to 27, 27 to 30, your buying habits constantly change. So there's no need to keep information that old. And that's the biggest thing with information being used against you, is that something from 10 years ago can come back to bite you, while something from 3 years ago coming back to bite you seems like a little more of a win-win. Like, it's not going to be as harmful towards you. So what I try to advocate for is a digital expiry date. So, like, they can take whatever they want, as long as we consent to it, whatever they want, just delete it after 3 years. That's my biggest solution.
But I've never heard of anything like that in Congress or any laws or anything.
No, the laws you're going to hear are going to be the useless ones that never go through. So, for instance, I was speaking to a few Canadian journalists, and I know Canadians love legislation, so they were pushing this new idea towards me where Facebook and Google and all those kind of companies would have to pay a portion of their advertising revenue from your information back to you, which they thought was a fantastic idea, and to which I said, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I mean, in what other business do you get a portion of your money back for buying something? Sorry, not even for buying something, for using something for free. Nothing. Like, nowhere else do you use something for free and then they give you money. And it would cripple online enterprise. Like, startups would not be able to function. These big companies would just find ways around it. And if they don't find ways around it, they'll go out of business, because this is their only... Google makes 90% of its revenue from digital advertising, and Facebook makes 98% of its revenue from digital advertising. So, like, the idea that they're going to pay a portion of that to people when they're already using the product for quote unquote free it's stupid. And then in Congress, I don't really know what they're pushing forward in terms of legislation at the moment for Facebook and Google. As far as I know, they're only just giving them like a little slap on the wrists. I don't think they're actually pushing legislation. They're making Mark Zuckerberg testify in front of Congress, but not actually being charged. He's just going to basically give a speech and a presupposed PR speech, which isn't going to mean anything. So, I mean, these companies have huge lobbying power in the US, so they're not going to get anything through for a significant time, unless there's a win-win situation like the digital expiry date, in which case both sides win.
Well, I just read on the news today, and I think this is kind of funny, kind of like what we were just talking about, is Mark Zuckerberg announced that Facebook will make political advertisers hand over information before they can advertise on Facebook, which I think this is one of those things where it is just putting a little Band-Aid over a big wound just to please the consumer. Hey, this is Tony from Truth Be Told. Captain Ron and I want to tell you about a new product that is sponsoring our show called GetTheTea.com, home of Life Change Tea. We've been using this product for over a month now, and we've seen a change in the way we feel. More energy, starting to lose weight. As someone that works out on a regular basis, I didn't know if this tea was really going to help me, but I have to say, I was surprised. Feeling great with more energy, and I have lost a few pounds in over a few weeks. So Captain Ron and I endorse this product, and we hope that you go to GetTheTea.com and pick up the Super Tea. Life Change Tea is a unique blend of all natural ingredients used with great results for several years. They take great pride in selling all organic U.S. manufactured product. It's a special blend which aids in maintaining great digestion, boosting your immune system, and may help cleanse your body from unwanted intruders. So stay healthy, stay happy by going to getthetea.com. Tell them that Truth Be Told sent you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just Mark Zuckerberg will just say whatever he has to at this point, because Facebook are in like the biggest PR nightmare of the century at the moment. So like they are just absolutely screwed unless they manage to come up with a solution soon, because like people just don't trust them anymore, especially if they're influencing an election with their irresponsibility of information, then their long-term future is not very secure, especially when other competitors like Twitter and Instagram are already starting to overtake it. So I don't think that they will actually make any changes. They are going to make change influenced by consumer buying power. So people really have to just stop using the service and stop letting them collect their information before they'll actually change. And it's not even that great a service. I mean, nowadays, like the idea of using it to connect with your friends and family isn't really true, because if you go onto the timeline, you'll never see your friends or family's posts.
I know.
You'll see memes, you'll see videos, you'll see advertisements. And then like there's loads of other different better ways of contacting your friends and family, such as WhatsApp, which is owned by Facebook, but has one-to-one encryption so they can't collect the information, or Viber or anything like that.
One thing I find scary is that I can be on my desktop and look up at something. If it was an attorney or something, and I'll go on my phone, and all of a sudden I'll get an ad for exactly what I was looking for. I'm like, how do they know at my work when I look up something on Google, but when I go on my phone it brings up the same stuff? How does that? I'm thinking, it's like, is this a somebody watching me? Because it feels like somebody's looking over my shoulder, because I don't know how it gets automatically.
It's your friendly FBI agent. He's not you.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah. So that's in your Google account is linked to your phone on your work computer. So I assume you're signed in on your work computer in the same account. So what that's doing is Google's collecting that information from your work computer, applying it to your account, and then when you go on your phone, it's just taking that information and going like, wants a lawyer. That's pretty much it.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
So we have.
You doing a break, Tony?
Yeah, I was going to say we have a new sponsor, and we're going to be talking about how amazing this Get Your Tea. We have. Hold on, you keep going, because I got to pull up some images, and I'm going to edit this in later, Ron.
Okay. Well then, listen, Dylan. I wonder if you could tell, like, I don't know how many people pay attention to stuff like this, or they know they collect data, but they don't really think about it. Why don't you talk a second about how you have the map here and everything that shows where you were in your country, and you're all over the place. It knows when you were there, what you were doing. That's fascinating. In 1 year's time, look at all the places you were. That's, somebody could find this out and rob your house. Look, he's over in Dublin for 3 months. He goes every summer here. I mean, that could be very dangerous.
Yeah, so in terms of someone getting access to your account, that's actually quite difficult. You would have to, A, get their password, and B, you probably have to be on one of their devices. So someone would have to actually have my phone, or they could have to use my computer to gain access to that archive, because they'd have to be already signed into my account and then know my password to gain access to the archive. So I wouldn't be too worried about other people getting access to it in terms of, say, hackers and stuff like that. You don't really be worried about friends and family, maybe a coworker, because if they know your password, then they could just sell your computer and it'd be very innocuous, and they could download your archive. Like, I think one of the weirdest things about the information that I've uncovered has been the amount of husbands and wives who have messaged me asking me how they can get their partner's information, or parents asking how they can get their children's information. I've had sexual assault attorneys contact me how they can prove their how they can prove that their case is innocent and stuff like that. It's very, very, very weird, but altogether it's gone into a stage where people want to use this stuff for malicious purposes. They'll say it's caring, but that goes against all my values. So I'm like, no, you stay away from it. Like, that's not yours. This is exactly what I'm fighting against. It's people like you But to go on from that, what Google is generally collecting is they have my location for the last 6 years down to the timestamp, where I was, how long it took me to get there, where I was before. Then they'll show the distance between the two locations, etc. So when you look at the map of my location for the last 12 months, you'll see a map of Ireland and then red dots everywhere, because I traveled quite a bit last year. And then they'll show how long it took me to get from point A to point B all over the place. They'll show how long I spent there. And then I'll show the restaurants I went to, the cafes I went to, the bars I went to, the hotels I stayed at, the houses I stayed in, the B&Bs I stayed at, the landmarks I visited, the tourist attractions, etc. And then, like, if you were to route that against the other stuff they collected, which would have been my search history, my browsing history, the amount of steps I've taken in Google Fit, the pictures I took, the apps I use like Snapchat and Instagram, and then they can put that against my Google Calendar events that I attended, the emails I might have sent or read, the ads I would have viewed or clicked, the news articles I would have read or clicked. You can say they had a very, very chronological diary of everything I've done for the last 8 years, pretty much. And I'm only 23, so that's since when I was about 15.
My God. Doesn't it seem like law enforcement could use this very easily to solve a lot of things? Like, even if something as simple as law enforcement could subpoena this information and show that Trump and Stormy Daniels were at the Beverly Hills Hotel, both of their phones showed they were there on that day, and they got them dead to rights. Isn't it that simple?
Well, see, that would be a very difficult thing to do, because that would violate your rights as a person, because they would pretty much be demanding for your own personal diary of everything that's happened in the last 10 years, and they would be asking for that diary to prosecute you. So you'd be in a weird sort of litigation circumstance there. And if
somebody was killed though, and there was a murder, and they were dead? Maybe the law enforcement could use their phone to figure out where. It seems like that would be something helpful.
Do you remember?
That's already happening.
Do you remember a few years ago here in the Los Angeles area? Remember that terrorist attack that the guy went in and husband and wife went in and killed a bunch of people at the work, I think, at the work, and the FBI subpoenaed to get his phone or Google to unlock it.
Fought it, right?
And they fought it. I don't know whatever happened to that, but
they cracked the phone.
Yeah, they finally end up getting somebody else to do it. But I mean, what is your thoughts on that? Because that is a privacy, even though there was a terrorist attack. It's like I think they use, to me, terrorist attacks for that reason, to scare us into like giving up more rights. That's my thought.
Yeah, it's real Patriot Act thinking when they do that kind of thing, where it's like, what we're doing is to protect you from terrorists. And it's like, well, Edward Snowden has proved that the NSA has never stopped a single terrorist attack in the history of the organization with its $20 billion budget. So it's incredible with that much money that they can't stop one terrorist attack, while some Indian kid can stop a terrorist from killing dozens of people with just himself. So it really is phenomenal that they have this much money but can't stop a single terrorist attack ever. So in terms of that kind of stuff, no. If they use the terrorist kind of argument, it's total bullcrap. Do not put in a curse. I'm going to stick with the safe word. But it's always bull, always bull, because they never stop anything. Because if you think about it this way, it's finding a needle in the haystack. Because, for instance, I'm not a terrorist, but I Google lots of things about ISIS and other kind of things like that because I find it fascinating.
Right.
So they'll see those searches, and then they might go down a false rabbit hole. They'll find all my other search history. They'll put agents on me. They'll try and figure out if I'm a terrorist or not. They'll go down through all my communications. They'll try and see if I'm using code words. And then after all that effort, I'm not. So like this, and there's thousands of cases of those happening every hour. So it's impossible to try and find the kind of needle in the haystack. I mean, they can find things on the darknet where sometimes terrorist cells will use chat programs to communicate with each other, and then the NSA might track down the people on those, but it never comes to fruition, because if you're using the darknet, you're probably decent at hiding your identity. In terms of the other stuff with Apple and the case where they tried to crack the phone, that case went public, which is why Apple didn't want to do anything about it, because they knew if they let the FBI get access to it, then their stock price would go down. But there's actually a private court for all of these kind of cases, because the FBI and the CIA subpoena Facebook, Google, and Apple all the time. Sorry, they subpoena them all the time, like genuinely dozens of times a day.
The other thing is, go ahead.
Yeah, so in these secret courts, they essentially, the FBI and CIA will put their case forward, Sorry, I can't spontaneously put up a source for this, so people have to retroactively look this up. But so the FDIC put their case forward, and then the judge will decide whether it's legitimate or not. And subpoenas are almost always legitimate. So then, if Google or Facebook or Microsoft want to fight against this, they have to get embroiled, get embroiled in a really long lawsuit, which they're probably not going to win. Google actually put up statistics showing the amount of subpoenas they've complied with, and it's around 85%. And for the other 15%, they had to get embroiled in like a 3-year lawsuit just not to give the information. So the authorities actually do this on a regular basis. It's just not publicized very well.
Dylan, I was going to say this. You're only 23 years old. Facebook alone has over 400,000 Word documents on you.
Yeah.
Isn't that an astonishing amount of data?
So I'm using Facebook. It is. So I've been using Facebook for roughly 10 years. Although I will say now, when I said 400,000 Word documents, that is a misleading number because that also includes all the images and videos, which are bigger files. The only reason I phrase it like that is so people who weren't really into technology would understand the severity of the information. So in terms of like, it's not actually 400,000 Word documents, but just for comparison, that's how much it would be. But still, it still had a phenomenal amount of information. So they had roughly 40,000 messages, I think, that I sent on Facebook, all of my statuses, some of which were embarrassing. Then pictures, also embarrassing, videos, audio messages, video calls, phone records, phone messages, phone calls, all the stickers I've ever sent on Facebook, all the GIFs, a few other things. I can't remember what they were. I think it was... Oh, and then they had the advertising profile, which used a summary of all this stuff, and then basically built a profile based on that.
That is so scary.
Oh, it's so scary.
Right, Tony?
And I think we're talking about Facebook a lot, but is there one platform that is more secure for consumer? Meaning, is there one that, like, if we're going to leave Facebook and they want to interact with their friends and other people, is there another platform that is more safe at this time for consumers?
No. So the thing is,
no.
No. So, well, it depends. See, if you're looking for email, you're not going to find an all-encompassing social media service like any of these that are going to be as good. That's just how it is. Like, it requires way too much money to maintain these kind of things. And if there is a similar service and it's free, they're doing the exact same thing, whether they tell you or not. You can find other specific services, like say instead of Gmail, you can use Proton Mail. They don't collect your data at all. If instead of Google, you could use DuckDuckGo or Presearch. There's not really any social media because the entire basis of social media is to collect your information. Like, because social media is credibility, is a cycle of credibility, attention, information, and then these all have a relationship together. And then the more people using it, the more attention it gets, and then the more likely people are to use it. So if you have more friends and family on it, you're going to use it, and then it just goes in that cycle. And you can't make that paid because the idea of paid social media hasn't taken off at all, because no one wants to pay to see their mother's dinner. Like, no one wants to see that stuff. They'll use it because they're bored, and you're not going to pay to use something that you just flick on when you're bored.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just paid social media is never going to take off. In which case, our only option really is free social media. In which case, they're going to collect your information. So you're kind of lose on either side.
Well, to Tony's point, though, Dylan, is there things you can recommend to the audience that you can do? Like I saw when I went into the Google, as you recommended, you can turn off, for example, what they collect. Can you do this on other sites? Do you recommend that to people for Facebook? Are there certain settings you can stop some of that collection?
Yes. So if you go into Google or Facebook, you can turn off the privacy. You can turn off the data collection. The only issue is that we don't really know what they're collecting and what they're not collecting. So, we might turn off the settings, but they might be doing it anyway. But look, at the end of the day, like, it's only surface level, so we can only do what we can do. Like, you can go into the dashboard and turn it off, and then all we can do is hope that they do. Because if they don't, then they're breaking the law. All
they're probably really doing is turning off your access to see that they collected it. They're probably still collecting it.
100%, but that is conjecture. So we don't know for a fact that they're doing that. But if they are doing that, then that's breaking the law, in which case they can get massive penalties. So, it's kind of hard to say. I couldn't say for sure.
Wow.
All of this stuff seems such minutia. They keep stickies things that couldn't possibly be important, and they collect that too. I don't think people realize the extent of what they collect. I mean, if you really got in there, you could find out anything about somebody if you got access to it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like if you have someone's archive, you have their life, especially in the kind of digital life of today. It's definitely a little bit off-putting when you're using social media and knowing that that option is there. Although, look, if you do turn off the privacy settings, then that archive won't contain anything, which is a benefit. Like that is. But also, you can't use some of the applications without consenting to Google's privacy collection. Because, so for instance, like if you were using Gmail, you have to let them read your emails. Like there's just no way around it. Like you can't do it. Like if you want to use Google Maps, you have to let them have your location, because how otherwise are they going to give you a route to where you're going? Like there's no way. So like in terms of getting out of that kind of scenario, there's not a whole lot you can do. Like that's how the applications are built, and they're fantastic. Like Google Maps and stuff is fantastic. It's just you will have to give some of your information if you want to use it.
Dylan, let me ask you this. Oh, go ahead, Tony.
No, I think like when you brought up Google and saying that once you create a Gmail account, they read your email. I do think it's funny that, they own YouTube. So I always wondered how if you put something up on YouTube, a video, within minutes, I mean, it's an hour-long video, within minutes they're like, oh, this is not user or not advertise friendly. And you're like, how in the hell would you know within like 2 minutes of that being live? I never understood how they got. So I get it now because of maybe subject matter in the title or whatever. But yeah, they're always watching. They're always watching.
Yeah, that's what they typically do. And there's actually been a big problem with more conservative or right-leaning videos and content on Google's platforms, is that Google will always shred the recommendations and views and likes of any of these kind of videos. So for instance, do you know Ben Shapiro?
Of course.
Yeah, so he experiences a big problem on YouTube, for instance, with his streams, where his stream or videos are rarely recommended. Despite watching, even if you watch dozens or hundreds of his videos, they're almost never recommended because they're technically considered hate speech as per YouTube or Google's guidelines, which Google tends to be a very far left leaning kind of company, as do most of Silicon Valley. So they say it's just the algorithms, but it's very convenient that it's only ever the conservative videos that get this kind of treatment. No one else does. I mean, when you have, say, like the young Turks, who would say be in the opposite direction of Ben Shapiro, they don't ever have their videos taken down or not recommended or not liked or anything like that. It's always the right-leaning ones. Wow. So, you can see in that kind of way that these kind of platforms can also influence the way people think politically, and it is very dangerous. It's conjecture, but you can see it for yourself.
Well, why don't you speculate on this then, Dylan? Tony and I, like Tony pointed out, are old and ancient, and we remember when we actually had some sense of privacy, before cell phones. And people your age now, you grew up, you've seen cell phones your entire life, you've seen Facebook most of your life. I mean, it's natural and normal. People think it's part of daily life to put everything on the internet and not have privacy. So where do you think this is headed? I mean, as you guys get older, everybody's going to think it's fine to just put everything online.
I think pretty soon we're going to see the world go in either two directions, where we'll see things go to a complete social media extreme. So, Black Mirror-esque kind of scenario, or else we're going to see a bit of a not rebellion, so it's probably a bad word. I don't know, I was going to use rebellion. We'll see like a social media rebellion almost, where people will just stop using the internet entirely. They'll go in a different direction, or it'll be a lot more controlled. What I'd like to see what I definitely like to see now with children nowadays is parents have to drastically reduce the time that kids are spending on their phones and that kind of stuff, because it warps your brain. Like people's attention span. Last time I checked, ADHD diagnoses have gone up to, I would think it's 1/3 of children nowadays. So 1/3 of children have ADHD according to psychometric measuring. Which is really astounding, considering 20 years ago it was nearly 1/8, and then 20 years before that it was like 1/20. So wow. There's only one thing going on, and that's that we just don't have attention spans anymore, or we don't value attention spans nearly as much.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to you. I was looking at my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. No, I wasn't talking. But,
well, that's what people do. It's true.
Yeah. So yeah, I do try to make a very conscious decision to always put away my phone, even when I'm talking to people. Even the act of putting your phone on the table is essential. If you put your phone on the table when you're sitting beside someone, your body language is saying, "I don't really care what you have to say." Like, so it's like, it literally is like you're literally going like, "I'm just waiting for a little notification to pop up, and then I'm gone. Like, I'm not interested in you anymore."
Dylan,
So,
we've talked about it. Tony and I have seen people sitting at a table next to us, and they're at lunch together, and they're both sitting there like this on the phone. It's insanity.
So a lot of my friends are like that, and I'm quite lucky with my girlfriend, where we both kind of agree on the same thing. Where we'll both try, if we go out to dinner or go out to lunch, we'll put away our phones and try and talk to each other as much as possible. And it's something I've my friends would think that I'm being a bit moody or something like that when I try to tell them to go off their phones, but I'm being like, no, because it's a genuine. If you really think about what that implies when you use your phone when you're talking to someone, you're literally saying, I don't care what you're saying.
This person's more important than you, and I'm talking to you live, but I'd rather talk.
And then I'm talking to someone.
I was going to say, there's usually not even a person. It's usually just
scrolling.
It's
just
worse.
Scrolling. Yeah, so it's like literally imagine you were talking to someone and they just crossed their legs and just pulled up a magazine in front of you. Like, it's the exact same thing. It's just it's smaller.
But isn't it funny that if somebody did that, everybody would be outraged. Like, what are you doing? And looking at a man, it's rude.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
But they don't say anything with the phone. They're like, oh, well, that's just the phone.
He must be busy.
Not really that taboo, mostly.
In fact, the other day I had a friend that he was so depressed, and I was like, what's going on? He says, I'm watching all these people going out and having a good time, and they're going on trips. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm looking at Instagram and I just see everybody, and I just feel like I'm a loser. I'm like, okay, do you realize that when people take a picture and put it on Instagram, they're not taking the worst moment of their life. They're taking a moment that they could be having a shitty day, but that they're going to take a picture of them next to a waterfall or whatever. I said, quit living in Instagram or any of social media. I mean, people get wrapped up so much into social media that they can't even. A lot of people I don't even know how to be happy without social media.
Yeah, I think social media is probably the biggest cause of depression and anxiety among young people nowadays, and I can say that without a shadow of a doubt. There's a couple of studies. I'd love to reference, but the thing is, those studies are only really being done now. Now people are studying the impact, because I know there was a global happiness scale which is done in a few countries, and I think 50 years ago, say at the peak of the United States, which would have been between like the 1950s and the 1970s, that kind of way. That's when they were really starting to explode industrially. The happiness scale was from, I think it was 1 to 50, and the United States average was somewhere around 40. So, it would have been like pretty happy. Like, things are pretty damn good. And nowadays, the world has never been in a better place. Like, poverty is going down by hundreds of thousands of people every single day. It's down like 40% since the late 1990s. Domestic abuse is down, violent murder is down, violent crime is down, drug crime is down, everything's down, everything's quicker, everything's faster, there's more food. The global happiness scale has gone down by something like 7 points. So it's like somehow, even though the world's never been better, we actually have so few problems that our brain doesn't know how to deal with it. So it starts creating problems where there isn't any. So where before you would have just been depressed or anxious because you literally have no food and you're going to starve on the streets, now you're depressed or anxious because you see an Instagram model who is a little bit skinnier than you.
Exactly.
Well, we have
just a point.
We just have a few minutes left, Captain Ron. You have
so Tony, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that now that you've talked about the evils of social media, why don't you give people your social media so that we can keep that going? Please. Because I think you're doing an amazing job. You're only 23. You're obviously going places. You're already at The Guardian. I think I want as many people as possible to follow your stuff. So if you would please.
Thank you. So my Twitter handle is @IamDylanCurran. I try not to tweet good stuff too much. I'm doing awareness kind of tweets now. Then you can follow me on YouTube. That's just Dylan Curran. And you can also, I'll be releasing a podcast starting from next week.
Oh, nice.
So I think my first guest is going to be Taryn Southern. She's basically a YouTube person, a YouTuber who does like AI videos and that kind of stuff. So yeah, just follow me on Twitter, and then you'll be able to keep up to date with everything else I'm doing.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. You are just amazing, and keep up the great work. We need more people like you.
Thanks, guys. It's been great speaking with you.
All right. Well, this is Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet. We have, what's your name again?
My name would be Captain Ron.
Oh, that's right. I never can remember that. But please check out our YouTube channel, subscribe, leave comments. We love to hear from you. And go to our website, truthbetold.webtv.com. We love to hear from you guys. Have
and try that tea. That tea is supposed to be fantastic.
the tea is amazing. Please go to getthetea.com, and it's home of the life-changing tea. It is. It's amazing tea. You're going to love it. You're going to lose weight. You're going to feel better, and it's all natural. So please pick it up at getthetea.com. All right. Thank you, guys. See you next time on Truth Be Told.